So anyone have any questions out there? It was an amazing evening for me yesterday when I spoke. I normally field 10 or 20 questions, and this time I fielded probably 100 or 200 people on questions. I wanted to first welcome you all to the dinner. We are really thrilled to be the sponsor here this evening. It's a wonderful opportunity for us, and you know, some people said, well, what did you get out of doing this? And I said, you don't understand. I mean, the experience that we've got is far more greater than anything that we could do with sponsoring. I was interviewed today with someone who is a national media person, and they asked me a question, and they said, well, what do you think of everybody talks about the future of the space industry and that there's not a lot of hope for the future. And I said, you guys don't understand. You haven't been in this conference for the last 2 days. Y'all are amazing. And I said to them, quite frankly, that the future is in pretty good hands. There's a lot of things that we can talk about in space. You've heard a lot about our company. We're not going to talk about that tonight. I just mainly want to reflect on a couple of things before I have the privilege of bringing our keynote speaker up. First and foremost, the reason that we're here is because we believe in the connection to the future of our industry, and we also believe in great relationships with the university. And we're blessed in Boulder to have one of the best universities in the country, the University of Colorado. And if you don't mind, I'm going to ask the university people who are in the room to please stand up and just get our thanks for it. We've had a many-year partnership with the University of Colorado, and it has been amazing for us to be able to be their partner, to build friendships, and to really see how they're building the next generation of students. And from someone who's got to hire some of these folks, I wanted to say just thank you from our heart for the work that you guys do. And I know sometimes it doesn't get recognized, and we certainly appreciate it, and we see it every day when we come to work as a really great example of what a good university can do for our future. So thank you for us. And I'm fortunate. I have the best job in the world. It's an amazing thing to be able to do what we do and to think about building the stuff that we build for space. But mostly, for me, it's an amazing opportunity to get to work with a lot of terrific people. I have, I think, the best team in the space industry, and I am fortunate because they're there picking up my mistakes all the time, like all the time. And if I could, I'd like to have all the folks, all my teammates, if they might just stand up and be recognized, because I wanted to thank them for creating an awesome company around us, so please do that. The lesson that I try to tell the people who came to ask me questions last night, it all begins with people. And this conference, while we were sponsoring it, besides providing a little bit of help on the side, we didn't do very much of anything. It was really amazing, because I do this a lot. We go to a lot of conferences, we travel around the country, and I have to say this is, so far for me, the best conference I've been at this year. So you guys have done an amazing job. While I know there's been many people involved with this, I wanted to recognize the 4 folks at this table here who have really made this a great experience for us. I know that things are going well when I get emails starting at 2 in the morning, going to 3 in the morning, going to 4 in the morning. Are you sure you know what you're going to speak about when you come in? Are you really sure you know what you speak about? You have to be there at 5 o'clock, and that was 5 o'clock p.m. But it was seamless for us, and I want you all, 4 of you, to recognize, in behalf of all the folks in the room who've been part of this conference, but please stand up, and we want to thank you for an amazing couple of days. So we've talked, you guys have heard from a lot of us who talked about space and what we might want to do and how we're going to do it, and you saw a lot of at least 1 or 2 PowerPoints. Is that right? It's a couple slides up there. You know, it all comes down to reality, and I'm blessed in my company to be able to say that we're going to Jupiter this year, we're going to Mars this year, we're getting a chance to build America's next orbital space vehicle, and it's just a tremendous experience for us to be able to do that. But as much as we like to say that we're talking about what we're going to do and all the hard work that goes on, it's also a privilege and a pleasure for me to be able to bring some people to this company that are taking this dream that we've had and building it beyond what I could ever imagine. Recently this year I was fortunate to be able to attract, I think, one of the most amazing talents in our industry, and certainly one of the people that is recognized amongst his peers as being one of the leaders, and that's not just in speak. You're going to hear in the next few minutes from Steve Lindsey, and Steve is going to talk about his experiences, and his experiences are, I will tell you, are not PowerPoint. They are a legend in many ways. His call sign, for those of you who don't know, is called Pinto. He can explain what that means, because I'm not going to go there, and he's not going to go there either. But most pilots, and certainly the astronauts, all are given a name for some reason along their way, and the goal in the game is to try to pry out the true story from him. So that's what you get to do a little bit later. But good luck. Steve hates when I talk about him, which is why I'm going to do this. But he's had several parts of his career. For the first part of his career, he was part of the U.S. Air Force and had the experience at flying over 7,000 hours as a test pilot. He's flown everything that could be flown and a few things that shouldn't have been flown. And he never had a problem on any one of his flights, because that's what he told me anyway. As far as I know, there never was a problem in any one of those flights. But Steve was known throughout the Air Force as the consummate test pilot, as the person that you wanted to have fly your plane, and particularly the person that you wanted to have fly your plane if there was a problem or if there was trouble. And that would have been enough, but then he decided to leave the Air Force because he couldn't fly fast enough. And he joined NASA, and quickly was recognized for his talents in NASA, and became a shuttle pilot, and got the opportunity to fly twice as a shuttle pilot. And then from there, they recognized even further his skills and gave him the role of commander. And he had 3 flights as commander of shuttles. So 5 flights in space, I believe something like 1,600 hours of flight time. Is that an hour? Close enough. A lot of hours flying a shuttle at it. And we were trying to calculate it one day. The shuttle flies around 17,000 miles an hour or so, and then we were trying to figure out how many miles he's actually flown in space, and there were more commas in it than I care to think about, so it's a lot of miles, and all successfully. As part of that, after he finished his 4th flight, NASA recognized him as a leader, not only just in his pilot skills, but as a leader of people, and gave him the role of chief of the astronauts. So one of the more difficult jobs I think anybody could have was that he had to manage and corral 120 Type A personality test pilot astronauts and get them all focused in the same direction. And as importantly, there were 6 seats on a shuttle flight. He had to choose between all these Type A personalities and figure out which one got to fly and didn't. And did that for 3 years, and was recognized as one of the best chief of the astronaut corps that NASA's had. He left that instead of retiring because he wanted to have one more chance to go to space, and NASA gave him the honor of bringing home the Discovery from its last mission to orbit and bringing it home and landing. And from that point, he then decided that that wasn't enough challenge. He had to come work in the commercial space industry. And but in all seriousness, one of the things he said to me when we were talking about his joining Sierra Nevada was that he wanted to have the opportunity to take those experiences and pass them on. To pass them on to people like you guys, and to have the opportunity to build America's next space plane, and have the opportunity to take those experiences that he's had as a unique 5-time shuttle pilot, and make it happen for not just a few people, but for hundreds of people, and for all of you in this room. So I'd like to bring Steve to the stage, and he's going to tell us a little bit about his life. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I really do hate it when he talks about me. Wow, well, it's exciting to be here. The first thing I want to do is like Mark, I've been going to a lot of conferences lately. I've been on the road pretty much nonstop, which, by the way, is your fault, Mark. It's been doing it. But you know, coming here tonight and seeing this is really gotten me excited. That's Mark's got it right. That is why I'm here. That is why we are here. So before I start talking, could all the students in here just stand up for a minute, please? I want to see how many we have. All right, good. Well, you guys that all stood up, you're why I'm here. You are why our company is here. I guess I speak at schools a lot, and you know, a lot of times I'm talking to elementary schools and places like that. But and I tell them I'm on a recruiting trip. But this time, no kidding, we really are on a recruiting trip. And so, what's exciting is to see all of you. You hear all the stuff in the news about we're not graduating enough engineers, which is true. But to see this group of students that are excited in taking over from us and doing what we are doing now. Is just wonderful. If you look at my hair, it's getting grayer and grayer, and I'm not going to be able to fly much longer. I'm going to be in the old astronaut's home along with JR back there and Joe T, wherever he's sitting. That's the other. I tell you, the worst thing to be as an astronaut is when you have to speak in front of other astronauts. So I got JR pointed out. I don't see Joe T, but I know where the heckling's going to come from. Okay. All right, you guys be quiet back there. Anyway. Yeah, they got a few stories on me, but I got even more stories on them. So anyway, well, so it's great to be here tonight to talk to you. And I thought rather than I brought a 50-chart PowerPoint presentation tonight to give you, but instead of that, I think I'll skip that tonight. And what I want to talk about is, in the end, I'll talk about why I went to Sierra Nevada and why I'm doing what I'm doing now. But what I want to talk about is talk about my final flight on Discovery and give you a sense of what a space shuttle mission is like. The program's over, and it's pretty bittersweet, particularly for those of us that worked in it for so long. And it was a 30-year, very, very successful program with a couple of tragedies involved as well. And the lesson for you and all that is it's a dangerous business. What we are doing now, Dream Chaser and the other commercial programs out there, it's a very, very dangerous, serious business, and you better take it seriously, or you're gonna lose people. So that's one of the lessons from Shuttle. It's one of the lessons we will carry forward. So if you go into this business, take it very, very seriously. But what I want to talk about is I'm going to show you a video from my last mission. And so let me talk a little bit about it, and then mostly we'll watch the video because I'd be more interested in listening to you talk. Anyway, STS-133, it was the final flight of Discovery. It was the 39th flight of Discovery. It was the oldest vehicle that remained in the fleet and flew the most of any of the vehicles. We went up on a 13-day mission. I had a 6-person crew, and we went up to the International Space Station and docked. And while we were there, we delivered a couple of payloads. We flew up the what's called a permanent multi-purpose module, which was essentially a pressurized module that we used for logistics transfer, except we did some modifications to it, put it up on space station, installed it robotically, and left it there essentially as a closet for stowage. We also delivered something called an express logistics carrier, which was a pallet. We also delivered that robotically and installed it on station, which carries spare parts. If the space station breaks, something breaks up there, you can't just run out to the hardware store and get a spare part. So we pre-staged parts for failures, and so that's the other thing we did. We did a couple of spacewalks. We delivered a number of science payloads. For those of you, how many of you heard of Robonaut? Okay, we flew Robonaut up, but didn't get them out of the packing. We would occasionally float by, and you could hear kind of some scratching on the inside. But we didn't pull him out. But I guess he's okay now. So we delivered all those payloads, and then flew back after 13 days. So without describing too much more about it, let me talk about Space Station real quickly, because with our flight, we actually completed assembly of the International Space Station. If you were to go up to the space station today, you would see something, if you went inside, is about the size of a 6-bedroom house, and it is huge. The interior volume is bigger than a 747. The size of the space station with the solar arrays is bigger than a football field. And it's a huge, huge, fantastic facility in space. We have participation from 16 different countries up there. We have 6 crew up there all the time, doing all kinds of science in multiple science labs. We have 3 robotic arms up there. It's just an unbelievable place. So we're going to show, you're going to see some pictures of it in the video. It's not going to do it justice, but it's just a fantastic facility, and that's what we're building Dream Chaser for, and the other companies are trying to build capsules for, is to go up and service that space station. So I'm going to roll the video in just a second, but I wanted to do a couple of caveats. I apologize, there's a few in the room that have seen the video already, and I didn't do a new video for you, so sorry, you're going to have to watch it again. In the beginning of the video, how many of you have ever watched Star Trek? All right, just about everybody. How many of you have watched the original Star Trek? And everybody at this table better be raising their hand. Okay, well, so in the original Star Trek, in the intro, they do this thing, Space, the Final Frontier, and it's William Shatner speaking, because he was a captain back then, but back before the rest of you were born. So when he found out Discovery was on her final flight, he actually recorded the same track, except he used the words Discovery, and he shipped it up to us as part of our wake-up music. So we thought it was cool. You'll think it's corny. But we put it in the beginning of the video, so you're going to hear that, and then you're just going to see these patches float by. And in the patches, each patch you see represents each mission that was flown on Discovery. And the tradition on patches are each crew, when they're assigned to a mission, gets to design their own patch. And so you'll see the designs of the patches of all 39 missions of Discovery come up. The other caveat I'll mention in here is we'll reference something, a song called Message in a Bottle. And it references one of the payloads we had to do while we were EVA, on spacewalk, sorry. And it was this Japanese payload, and this is my favorite payload. So there's this little canister. These guys go out the door, and they take it out with them, and what they were capturing was the vacuum of space. So they had to open this thing up and capture nothing, and then close it up and bring it back inside. It was destined for a science museum in Japan. So they opened it up and captured vacuum, brought it back in. We asked them when they got back in, do you want us to open it up, make sure we got it? But they said, no, don't do that. This is why you don't let pilots do science. So anyway, so there's the 2 little caveats that might look a little different. So without further ado, let me mention my crew members real quick. I was the commander, which basically means I don't do anything. Okay, I let the rest of the crew does the work, I take credit for it. Isn't that right? JR and Joe T will verify. JR and I actually flew a mission. When was that? 2001. Any of you, were you all born in 2001? All right. Yeah, JR and I flew a mission together, so he's got really bad stories on me. Anyway, so I think without further ado, I'm going to show it. Oh, I was going to mention the rest of my crew. Eric Bowe was my pilot. He was an Air Force test pilot as well. And then Nicole Stott was one of my mission specialists. Steve Bowen, who was a Navy submariner. We had to have one token Navy guy on the crew. And then Alan Drew was also on the crew. And Mike Barrett, Dr. Mike Barrett. So those are the crew. You'll see them in the video. You'll see us join a crew of 6 on the space station. So without further ado, let's just go ahead.
These have been the voyages of the Space Shuttle Discovery. Her 30-year mission to seek out new science, to build new outposts, to bring nations together on the final frontier, to boldly go and do what no spacecraft has done before. ready to go, and appreciate all your work. And for those watching, get ready to witness the majesty and the power of Discovery as she lifts off one final time.
We have made it to the start. And the final liftoff of Discovery, a tribute to the dedication, hard work, and pride of American space shuttle team. He just wants to fly.
I'm thinking about how cool it is to be up here doing this, but what's even more impressive to me about the whole spaceflight business is when you have a large team like we have doing something incredibly complex, and yet we pull it off successfully year after year, mission after mission.
She just wants to fly.
One good thing is you can't drop your pencil.
He's obviously a physics major.
We must fly. Pedal faster, Alvin. Come on, say more. Go. Wondering fuels our discovery. We won't surrender. Don't clip our wings.
Okay, we're going to show kind of a flight through. This is starting in the airlock.
Just want to fly. We just want to fly.
There's people starting up there working to pull out the center line camera.
We just
Commander Steve Lindsey, pilot Eric Bowe, one of the bravest men I know. We're legends in our own mind. Legends in their own mind.
Hey Steve, Tim, I just wanted to tell you guys you'll have an awesome launch, and we're all very proud of you down here.
Great to hear your voice, Tim. I wish you were here because I turned you on the hunt for the overlay that I'm missing. But anyway, appreciate the good words. It was a great launch. Can't tell you how much we wish you were here with us as well.
Well, I'm sure you know that I feel the same way, but I definitely feel like I'm there in spirit, and I'm especially looking forward to seeing Steve and Al go out the door and do great work.
All right, Discovery, just goes to show you have a 7-person crew. They're just not all up there with you.
Absolutely. So Houston, we have a Delion asset up there with us. That thing is a lot bigger since the last time I was here. Discovery Station has you loud and clear on the big loop. What took you guys so long? My call, initiating RPM. 3, 2, 1, mark. Discovery is initiating final approach. Station in Houston, Discovery has capture confirmed.
Hey, all right. Hello.
Welcome. Hello.
the voice of ELC Forum here today and let you guys know how much we appreciate your help and that it was really very impressive working from the cupola and watching how these dogs work together and getting the ELC birth to the truck.
Well, Discovery is a really historic vehicle in a lot of ways. It took its name from a lot of ships of exploration over many centuries, and it comes with a pretty rich heritage, and it's really lived up to that. She just performed magnificently getting us up here, so I think we're all going to be kind of sad to see it go. And we're going to remember Discovery and all the shuttle fleet. I think is the most capable vehicles that have ever flown in space. And Steve Bowen, uncharacteristically speechless. And our commander has given them all sorts of words of encouragement and also told them if they do a bad job, he won't let them back in.
Okay, open and stowed. You know, sit out there, just sitting and stressing, you're going to wake up sometime. That coffee ought to be kicking in any time now. If you don't have a camera. Excellent, guys. Steve finish up the moving center task and then head back to the airlock and then we'll be ready for
and to the whole team there, great work including a textbook EVA.
Alvin True, first EVA. What are you going to do, Al?
I'm gonna have dinner.
How was it?
That was awesome. Oh man, that was great. The views were outstanding.
What are you doing today?
Well, today Mike and I are going to move the PMM, which is the module that's currently in Payload Bay of Discovery, over to the station, and that will complete the assembly of the ISS.
Ready? Go. Yeehaw.
But we only got about 16 minutes left before an extended LOS, and we have a lid here for the transfer brief before hatches close.
instructions exceptionally well today as I boss them around.
Scott, it was a pleasure to be up here. We appreciate your hospitality. We appreciate you putting up with us, knocking your stuff off the walls, and generally trashing your station. And we're going to miss you guys. And so thanks for everything.
We're going to miss you, but most of all, we're going to miss Discovery. We wish her fair winds and following seas. Thank you. Discovery departing.
We'll miss you guys.
I'll take walks by the rolling sea, when the cliffs drop out to meet the big blue deep. I breathed in the air that rolls over these hills. I breathed it in, but I've had my fill. I gotta roll away. Maybe I'll return to this island someday. Roll away. Maybe I'll
Discover you are on energy approaching the hack. Latest winds now 17 peak 25 out of 150, so it's straight down the runway. We ran the energy numbers with a higher peak wind that we gave you earlier, which was the 18 peak 28, still getting you 2,200 feet down. So we'll call it the 2,100 at 195.
Okay, copy that.
You're flying, thank you. Good job. Bring it on, boys and girls, after that. I see one, I see two, I see them both. Good, going into the clouds.
We agree you are on, and we have good video.
600, 500, 400, get down. Now you're 4230, 2220, and 5205, okay, shoot. 1, 2, get ready. There's a shoot. Those gears now. Alright, backing it up. Here comes the sun. Now get the shoot on top. 99. Nice job, Steve. Yeah, beautiful. 85. Yeah, the winds are just great. Shoot is coming. Now, come on, brakes. I'm going to shoot. I'm not hardly touching it. Okay. 59. Nice job. That was funny.
Oh, I love this place, my breath and my bones, and I'll always call this island my home. But I know when the day comes, when my farewell.
And Houston is going for the final time. We'll stop.
Discovery Houston, Pinto, great job by you and your crew. That was a great landing in tough conditions, and it was an awesome dock mission that you all had. You were able to take Discovery up to a full 365 days of actual time on orbit. I think that you call that a fleet leader and a leader of any manned vehicle for time in orbit. Job well done.
We're headed to 5-3, and I'd like to thank you and your team and all the orbit team for a fantastic mission, as well as the Expedition 26 team on orbit. And I'd also like to thank KFC for giving us a perfect vehicle from start to finish on her final flight.
Thanks. It was fun. You can probably tell. We had a good time up there. It was a great mission, and it was a real privilege for all of us to get a chance to fly the final flight of that vehicle. And if you ever want to see Discovery, I think probably within the next year or so, the Discovery will be in the Smithsonian. So if you're ever in D.C., go take a look at her. And hopefully they'll display her so that you could see her how we saw her and what it was like to fly her and work on her. That last picture in the end where you saw the all the people of Kennedy Space Center that formed the space shuttle shape. When I think about the missions that I've flown in my time at NASA, I don't really think about the details of the missions. What I think about is that group of people, this team of thousands of people that took to do one of these missions successfully. As a crew, you see us on TV and we're in the vehicle doing all what, and it appears that we're doing the work, but the truth is we're not. We're a tiny little part of it. It's the huge ground team, the Kennedy Space Center, Johnson Space Center, all the NASA spaceflight centers, all of the contractors, all the thousands of people, going all the way back to the original designers of the shuttle back in the late 60s and early 70s that made this happen. So that's what I think about when I do it. So I came back from the flight and I made a decision to leave NASA and go to Sierra Nevada Corporation. And I want to kind of leave you with that and why I did that. With the shuttle program ending, and then we had a program called Constellation got canceled because we couldn't afford it. And then instead of doing that, then we started this commercial crew program and it was really hard for all of us when the Constellation program ended, because then we thought, well, gosh, how are we going to get back into orbit? How are we going to fly? And so I made a decision to go to Sierra Nevada because I think it's in our nation's vital interest to get back into flying into low Earth orbit and exploring beyond and taking this to the next phase. And I felt so strongly about that's why I made the decision I made. I had a very good job at NASA, a very comfortable job, a lot of security at NASA, and instead I chose to come do this, which, by the way, if you've never tried it, it's really, really hard to build a spacecraft. But we're doing our best, and I think we're going to be successful. So just so you know, that's why I made the decision I made. And so I think I want to end based on my decision to kind of hopefully give all of you students, some idea of some principles that I've tried to follow that I think maybe apply to you, that you at least want to think about. I've spoken thousands of times all over the place, and I often get the question, somebody will come up to me afterwards and say, well, what do I need to do to become an astronaut? And so, I go through the standard stuff about what you need to do, the requirements, the technical background, the job experience, and all that kind of stuff. But what I tell them instead, I said, that's all fine, and if this is your passion, this is what you really want to do, then you ought to go for it. So I think it's really important that you go out and set high goals. I went out and set high goals. I didn't necessarily plan to be an astronaut from the very beginning, it just kind of worked out this way for me. But I think it's important to set high goals, but what I always tell people is that, if you have to pick what you're passionate in, and if you're not passionate in what you're doing, the worst thing that would ever happen to you is if you wanted to go after a goal, let's say being an astronaut, and you spent every waking moment and everything in your life trying to become that, and what would happen, and you're maybe doing things you didn't want to do, and what would happen if you didn't make it? Because not everybody gets or is fortunate enough to make it. Then you would be down a path that maybe is not the path you want to be on. So what I always tell people is you need to pick what you're passionate about and set high goals and go for it. But the one thing that I want you in your life, as you go through your life and you go off in your career, not to forget, is don't ever forget to enjoy the journey along the way. Do what you want to do, be passionate about it, but enjoy the journey along the way. If I had never been an astronaut, I was having a great life. I loved what I was doing. I'd still love what I was doing, whatever it was, if it was doing something else, because I went after what I was passionate in, and I focused on the journey, enjoying the journey as you go along. The second thing I would leave you with is, don't be afraid to take a risk. There's a lot of people that are afraid to take risks. I've had a full career in the Air Force, a full career in NASA, and I just jumped in a new job for the last 3 months. That's taking a risk. You know, I got kids in college. I'm taking a risk, but I'm taking a risk because I'm following what I'm passionate about. And particularly when you're young, don't ever be afraid to do that. And so what if you fail? You know, that's going to happen, but don't be afraid to take a risk. You know, be passionate about what you're doing, take a risk. And finally, whatever it is, just enjoy it. Enjoy the journey, be passionate about what you're doing, and don't be afraid to take risks. So with that, I was at a dinner one time, and George Bush Sr., George Bush 41, was talking, and he said, so I'll leave you with this story. There was a guy standing up on the podium, and he was talking on, and he had about 50 PowerPoints, and he kept going on and on. He was droning on and on. And finally, a gentleman down here at the table took his shoe off and threw it at him. But unfortunately, he missed. And it went sailing past him and hit this lady at a table right over here. Whereupon she said, "Hit me again, I can still hear him." So with that, I think I will say goodnight and hand it back to Mark. Thank you.
We're going to end the evening with one more activity, and first I wanted to thank Steve for an amazing talk and presentation. What Steve didn't tell you was that on the way down, the Discovery had higher winds than it was supposed to land in, and he probably uttered what all of us uttered as pilots were told, that, so I'll do the PG version of it, but God, don't let me screw up. Am I right?
Yes. Test pilot's prayer.
It is. It's the test pilot's prayer, it's called. But I wanted to, we have a few more things that we'd like to do, and we are fortunate to have Steve here, but we also have a number of other astronauts in the room that we wanted to recognize. I'd like to first bring up one of the other members of my team, Gary Payton. Hi, Gary. Surprise. Gary has an amazing career in itself. He has been a leader at NASA. He had been the Undersecretary at the Air Force for Space Programs, and he has worked in the Missile Defense Agency, and among all those things, he also found time to be a NASA astronaut pilot on one of the NASA astronaut mission specialist on one of the missions. And Gary, we have a little recognition for you for coming for the dinner and joining us here.
Thank you, Mark. Great.
Given all that Steve talked about, this is really not very much compensation for that. But Steve, on behalf of everyone here in the Space Division and SEDS, we'd like to also recognize the efforts that you did in talking and being part of the evening. And because all things being fair, his payment for this evening was not money, it was the chance to talk about his other two astronaut friends in the room with a microphone when they can't say anything. So I'm going to turn the microphone over to Steve.
JR. I don't know him. Jim Riley. This is, let me tell you a little bit about Jim. Jim is so Jim and I were in the same class. We were in a class of 95, astronaut class, and we actually flew together. The first time I commanded, the first mission I commanded was up in 2001 at the space station. We installed the airlock that you do spacewalks out of, and so he was a EVA crew member. He helped install that thing, and then he actually did the first spacewalk out of there with another crew member who will remain nameless for tonight. We have many more stories on. So, but JR flew. So he flew a total of 3 or 4. 3. JR flew 3. Is that my fault? You only flew 3? I had to sign Astronaut. I think I offered you 4th, didn't I? Or you left? I don't remember. Anyway, so JR, come on up. JR is a terrific astronaut, and he was a real, he was great. He's just a blessing to fly with. So, this is JR. One quick story on JR when we were on the flight. JR had just joined the Naval Reserve, so you know he's a PhD doctor, very experienced, but he joined the Navy and he was only an ensign in the Navy, and so it gave me great pleasure from the shuttle flight deck to announce over the intercom whenever I wanted him, Ensign Riley to report to the flight deck. I just love that. But anyway, I have to tell that. And last but certainly not least, Joe T. Joe Tanner, not a doctor, sorry. Joe Tanner is a Navy pilot, and he's a Navy pilot. He came in class of '92, flew 4 space shuttle missions. How many EVAs did you do, Joe? 7? Yeah, 7 EVAs. He last flew on STS 115, which installed solar arrays up on the space station. So. Jared flew 3 times, class of '92. He was a good friend of mine, really a mentor that I looked up to, and I've known him for years. And his beautiful wife Martha's here tonight too, as well. So, Joe, come on up.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to just say thank you to all you guys for bringing us inspiration and memories, and certainly making these folks and me and many of the people in our lives realize why we want to go to space. Who in here wants to go to space? Thank you.
Okay, we have one quick last thing. Mark, don't go anywhere. We have one more thing that we want to give to Mark, just to say thank you again for all that you've done, not only with this conference, but with everything for this generation. So here is a plaque for you.
Thank you.
Thank you again. The programming for this evening, so thank you so much for joining us, and we hope that you have a good and safe Halloween celebration tonight if you choose to participate in that, and a great rest of the conference tomorrow. Thank you.